It was just, if anybody hasn't been to China, it is emotionally draining. What Barry has talked about, if you have ever, I mean, it doesn't even have, well, you don't have to have children, but if you have young children, it hits you hard. Okay, I mean, there are kids on the backs of mopeds with masks on, but no helmets.
And no masks.
And we're not, it's not that we need to be ugly Americans and that we're judging. I think what you're hearing here is genuine humanitarian concern about something that is present and clear. I mean, they are our factory. They are our borough. And we have, I don't want to use judgmental terms, but we have culpability in that. But more importantly, we have opportunity in terms of technology transfer. I mean, the Clean Coal Foundation, the Carbon Capture Storage Association, I mean, first of all, to address your point, Mark, it's an all of the above strategy, and all of the above means renewables have to have a place and cleaner technologies have to have a place. But I think things like China, and I'm not saying this as a tagline, it is a reality. If you don't believe in clean coal technology and you believe in global warming, it's game over. Because if we don't develop and commercialize and make affordable clean coal technology for a company that has 87% of its grid being coal, that built our entire power fleet in the last 5 years and will build it again in the next 10, it's game over. They're going to use coal, primarily because they have still 300 million people who don't have any electricity, and their highest environmental priority is poverty. Okay, so I mean, we take a lot of crap, clean coal technology. It sounds like a tagline to some environmental groups, but I'm telling you, I'm passionate about it. If we don't believe in clean coal technology and commercialize this technology in a market-smart way and make the economics work for those folks, it is not going to get done, and this world is going to have real issues. Whether you believe in global warming, or whether you just care about the kid on the street in Beijing, because there are real problems. They're still burning coal in open hearth furnaces to steam heat apartment complexes in China. Okay, we saw, and I'll let these guys address the first day of winter. That's a topic that I think they would get a kick out of this. Especially in Chairman Smitherman and Chairman Williams' positions, they got a kick out of that. I'll let them tell that story about the first day of winter. But one of the questions it was really pretty much addressed, Dr. Shaw, but the mercury issue, and it was a question, it wasn't just, I would have probably asked this question, but it was fed to me. You should all know, the United States is about to regulate mercury in a whole new way. And it will shut down power plants. A long list of power plants. And you would be not surprised to hear me say, I think that's a horribly bad idea, given how clean and how much money's been invested in those power plants to make them clean. But the statistic that Dr. Shaw mentioned, the EPA's own numbers show that 65, maybe it's upward above that, % of the mercury deposited west of the Mississippi comes from Asia, with the largest component coming from China. And we are about to make, and I'll just tell you, do material harm to our economy without ever mentioning the mercury word one time in international environmental discussion. And so the question is, do we need to start prioritizing mercury and maybe some local ambient condition improvement as a matter of human rights as a priority over GHGs in international discussions?
Well, I've already spoken to it some, but I'll address it more directly, I guess. I certainly believe so. And while you look at the potential for the greenhouse gas, and I certainly have a more cautious view about how much man's contributing to global climate change, and so the value of reducing greenhouse gas is difficult to quantify. In fact, that's why EPA has recommended that you not try to make decisions about control technologies to reduce greenhouse gases based on the impact, because they can't model well and accurately what those impacts would be. And so the suggestion is that you look at the amounts of emissions from greenhouse gas emission reduction compared to what the subsequent increases in other pollutants emissions might be. Because if you look at it, as you've talked about, on the potential health impact or even environmental impact, it's difficult to quantify, and frankly, those local impacts from NOx and SOx and other toxic emissions that occur in industrial sources that we have far outweigh, especially in the short term, anything on greenhouse gas emissions. Second of all, if you look at, where should we invest our issues? If you ask what is a greater concern to impact the health of people globally, greenhouse gas emissions, or in this case the mercury, especially if you look at some of the ozone and the other issues that we see that are at truly high levels that are causing health impacts in Asia and other similar situations to what was discussed on this trip, those are where the real benefits are available. That's where the opportunity is to have a real impact on improving the health of people and the environment overseas. And yes, I think that we have a huge opportunity to be able to use our international clout and negotiating ability to have impact on those people's lives. Because I've had a graduate student who basically took time off to go home because her mother was sick because of being, she directly related to her mother's illness related to the air pollution in China, and she felt compelled to go and help take care of her mother because of the poor environmental conditions she's faced with. And while we certainly still are continuing to make and need to make environmental progress here, I think we continually need to evaluate and do a risk-based approach and assess what is the real issue, what is the real best place to invest our money in the U.S. and to invest our negotiating abilities overseas to encourage and take some opportunity to improve the livelihood of those that haven't had the blessing we've had in this country. So yes, I think that's there's a lot more benefit potentially addressing mercury and some other emissions locally in Asia than there are in the greenhouse gas.
Well, I think part of our challenge is we have to make this discussion be a cool discussion. I don't mean cool literally. I mean, it's cool. Right now, it's cool globally to be in favor of reducing CO2. If you want to hang out with folks in Copenhagen or Cancun, they're not talking about mercury, they're talking about CO2. And so I think, like every one of us, we all aspire to be cool. The Chinese aspire to be cool as well. And so I think that's why the conversation has been about CO2 and greenhouse gases. But let me just underscore what we mean when we talk about crazy bad air quality. Or it was rephrased later on to be beyond index. And what that means is the U.S. Embassy has a scale of 1 to 500. And according to the experts, 0 to 50 is good, 50 to 150 is moderate, 150 to 300 is bad, 300 to 500 means don't even think about breathing this, and over 500, according to the World Health Organization, is 20 times the level of particulate matter deemed safe. And we were talking about air quality that was beyond index, more than 500.
And somebody said it was the equivalent of smoking 5 cigarettes, which
what, in a minute or
in a day? A day on the ground in Beijing during that time was the equivalent of smoking 5 cigarettes, which doesn't kill you, but you wouldn't let your 3-year-old do it.
And you wouldn't want to do it every day
behind the
for the next
exhaust
30 years.
of a diesel engine, basically.
Yeah, one of the to put another way of comparing that, if you look at the United States, we've made sufficient progress in reducing our ambient, the outdoor pollution, such that I would argue that in most cases it is considerably safer to be breathing ambient air than it is to be breathing air inside a room. In our households, in this room, when you look at the furnishings we have and the off-gassing from the carpeting to the other things, we tend to have greater exposure indoors in the United States than we do ambient exposure. That is not what you're seeing. You're seeing where truly staying inside is the only approach that provides some relief from the pollution in that situation that was discussed in Beijing. And so while we continue to make progress, we're at the point now where one of the struggles and one of the things that I push for is that we invest in understanding where the risks really are such that we can decide, is it really appropriate on relatively high smog days to tell people to keep their kids indoors? Because the indoor air quality may not be as good for them, and certainly we know that lack of exercise is one of the greatest problems we face from a health standpoint. And while that's something I think that we must continue to evaluate, is making sure that we're really targeting where the next level of environmental improvement is. I'm thankful that that it's one of those that may be difficult to deal with, as opposed to China, where clearly you don't want to be out breathing that air if you can avoid it.